I guess, you know what I would love to start
Tell me.
is because I'm doing a lot. I work as a family therapist, day job, right? And I run a men's community. We're spending a lot of time on Zoom. I love to do warm-ups. So I'd
Mm-hmm.
love to like, I don't know, share warm-ups with each other. Like,
Yeah.
what do you do to get into your body, especially when you're sitting a lot and you're staring at a screen? What feels good to you to do right now?
Yeah. Well, that's a really great question. I actually do my warm-ups off the couch usually.
Mhm.
Yes, I'm either stretching or dancing, usually dancing. I'm putting on my dance playlist on YouTube
Mm.
and I just dance around. And so that's so usually I didn't have a chance this morning because I was kind of rushing around.
Mm.
But that's usually what I do. Once I'm here, I don't really, which is now that you brought it to my awareness, I'm going to start thinking about that. I'd love to hear what you do as a warm up in this situation.
I run a lot of groups and I we just go around and it's amazing how much fun stuff you can do. People love to massage their faces, so I like to massage
Mm,
the face.
mm,
I find just like following my intuition, sometimes I need to just
mm.
hold my head. My head is overheating.
Right.
Sometimes it's to put hands on the shoulders,
Mm,
tapping,
mm-hmm,
brushing, just um, reminding myself that I have a body and that I can
mm,
befriend my
mm.
body. And it's a relationship. So it's not like I do this technique and this
Right.
stretch. It's
Right.
like, hey, how are you doing today, friend?
Right. Right.
Oh, you need a little holding here.
Mm,
Oh, you need some shaking.
mm-hmm,
Oh, okay.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Kind
Mm, I
of,
dig it. Yeah.
yeah.
I didn't think of that as where I think I do things very much like that naturally. But I
Yeah.
didn't really categorize it or compartmentalize it. I like that.
I remember one time we met on the street and we started
Mm,
having a conversation, but we started dancing and moving together.
I
Like
remember that.
I was elbowing and I love that. I love that
Yeah.
about getting to know you is you're really
Yeah.
in your body and I can feel you. You're really present.
Yeah, well, thank you. Thank you. It's
Mm,
you helped me. You've helped me because, I work with parents. That's what I do. I work with parents. I help
mhm.
parents
Yeah.
have more harmonious relationships with their kids. And I don't focus on their embodiment that much because
Mm,
we're immediately into the emotional stuff and the relational
mm,
stuff. And I do meditations with them, and there's a couple of meditations which are focused on the body, actually, but they're
mm,
not movement either.
mm,
So I really like the. I'm really going to ponder the idea of bringing a little bit more of this movement and touch
mm.
and intuitive connection to the body into the work that I do. I really appreciate you putting that more on my radar.
Oh, I when I work with families, especially on Zoom,
Yeah.
it's amazing how their stories, like oh, she doesn't understand, rah, rah. And then I ask
Mm.
them to just, okay, can you guys just look at each other? Can you
Mm.
can you put your hands against each other and push against each other, or
Mm.
just can you show me what it's like when you fight? Oh, okay, you turn away, you slam the door.
Right.
I mean, I would get mad if someone slammed the door in my face and turned their
Right.
back and
Right.
talked to the wall while they're talking. There's so much physicality
Yeah.
in relationship that I find sometimes, especially when the stories we've been talking for a while around something and it doesn't
Mm.
seem to connect, I find that
Yeah.
I have to make it more concrete. Otherwise, it also gets really complicated, right?
Mm.
What
Mm.
people are saying, what actually happened, and when they
Mm.
actually show me that interaction, then it's like,
Yeah.
oh, well, okay,
Yeah. Right.
yeah.
Yeah. I love
Mm,
that. I try and have moments of physical connection with my wife all the time.
mm,
I'm always kind of going up and leaning on her,
hmm,
or especially being a contact improv dancer,
mhm.
which I love, and I love the dance form, and I still try and keep it alive as much as I can in my life. My couch is my main partner these days. I'm always, I'm always flipping over my couch, and I
Yeah.
rarely ever get up. I don't know if you seen my getting off the couch video.
No.
But I put a video on Facebook of me
Yeah.
getting up off the couch, and basically I flip over backwards every time I get off the couch. I never just get off the couch,
Oh, that's beautiful.
and I have so much stuff here that I can get on the couch with like a 2 foot little space, and I still land poof, so good.
Yeah.
So good. Yeah, I love it. And but with my wife's not a contact dancer. She's starting to get more into it, but she's not. Um, and so I find little ways to bring that same connected sensibility into it. You know, like if she's working, I'll go and I'll like lean on her. If she walks by me, I'll put my hand on her shoulder and like give her some pressure as she walks by. Little things all the time I'm doing, not big drawn out things necessarily, but just moments that always say, "Hey, we're bodies in space together." And the more I've been paying attention to that, I didn't do that during the beginning of the pandemic, but then it was like a light bulb turned on. And the more I've been doing that, I've been noticing the openness and the intimacy and the more of a relaxed connection happening between us. Same when she's stretching. She often stretches on the floor. I'm just pointing over there where she stretches, and that's another time. Whenever she's stretching, I'll go and I'll stand behind her and I'll put my knees into her back and kind of lean on her, and she'll counter pressure back into me. So I like finding spontaneous moments to do that kind of connecting.
That's beautiful, Vivek. It makes me think of Stan Tatkin, psychobiology approach to couples therapy. He studies the eye contact, the physicality. And one of the things he says is huge is launchings and landings. When we separate to go to work or when we come back together,
right.
if we take 30 seconds and just look at each other, like hold each other, both partners feel so much happier and loving. And when we do that without that kind of moment, slowing down, we feel more anxious, and more disconnected. And I find like these days with us all working at home, we do like 100 launchings and landings a day.
Right.
Where I'm available, not available.
Right.
And my daughter and my wife kind of sometimes when I'm too abrupt, they feel this like he's right there, he's in his office, but I can't reach him, and so I've been trying to do what you just beautifully described, of like even like 10 seconds, even just that hand on the shoulder, a little bit of contact, just to remind each other, hey, we're connected. And now beautiful. I'm going, but I'm coming back.
Right. Yeah, those reminders, they're so important. Yeah, because we can get caught up. I don't even say can get. I actually think it's a natural thing for us to get caught up in our own sphere, and it requires a certain amount of awareness and effort to keep that externally. It's not really external, but it can feel external. Connection going. I know one of the things that we do as a family, always have done it, is anytime any of us leaves the house, everybody congregates at the front door. And it reminds me of what you said. I like the launchings and landings idea. I've been calling it transitions, but transitions is not as clever a name. I like clever names for things. And anytime somebody goes into the room, we all say, we announce it. Actually, I'm going into my room. Let me know if you need anything. Let me know if you need anything is one of our family phrases. It's that I'm still in the space. I'm still available. And I want some time to myself. It's like both coexist.
Yeah.
We have a lot of time apart and a lot of time together in our family. There's a lot of flow that way, which I really appreciate, that we all have learned to listen to ourselves and still value that connected time.
Well, this kind of makes me want to dive into the theme of boundaries and like how to negotiate that place of I'm no longer available, or I'm only a little bit available, or I'm fully available, but you're not available. Or I want to like get rough and play, but you just want a lot of space right now, or vice versa. Like, how do we, as a family in lockdown, in normal conditions, even, like, how do we express what we really want, and how do we respect each other's boundaries?
Yeah,
that's a real art.
Yeah, that's a beautiful thing to talk about, for sure. One of my parenting sayings, I have a lot of parenting sayings, and I probably have hundreds, actually. I haven't written them all down. People keep telling me, Vivek, you got to write all these sayings down. But this one I think I have written down is, I didn't want to teach my kid to respect boundaries. I wanted to teach my kid to want to respect boundaries. And it's slightly different because the want to arises from the respecting boundaries is a behavior, but wanting to arises from the relationship, arises from empathy and compassion, arises from our awareness of each other's human experience and our genuine care for that human experience and for our impact on each other.
Wow.
And yeah. And those are the things that I focused on in how to teach boundaries. So I wasn't teaching this is what you should do and this is what you should say. It was the conditions that led to the desire. And I think in our house, because of that, and in a lot of the families that are following this kind of philosophy, that this spontaneous desire to care for each other's experience it arises and is important to each individual. Like, it's important to me that my kid has the amount of alone time she needs, that my wife has the kind of space that she needs. It hasn't always been. I'll tell you, I've been married we just had our 27th year anniversary, and there were a lot of years that went by where I thought my way of doing things was the right way, and anyone who wasn't doing it that way was wrong, and everybody had to listen to me. Thank you. and then slowly, but it's happened. I've realized that I get more of what I want by opening myself to other people's realities and really caring about them. Yeah.
Oh, there's so much there in your distinction. Like when you first said that, I felt like waves of something going through me, something really powerful and loving in what you said. I just thinking of a family I see regularly and help, and they know they're smart people. They're like gifted. Yeah. Everyone's a genius in this family.
Right.
They know they're crossing each other's boundaries. They know how not to do that. They know how they want the other person to not do it. But there isn't this care. Maybe there's a wounding sometimes too, where you hurt me, so I'm gonna hurt you back.
Yeah.
And like, I'm so curious, like, how do you cultivate that desire to care about another's boundaries? Because it's not rocket science to realize you've crossed the boundary. They get mad, they tell you, they lecture you, and then you do it again, right? So how do we back up and cultivate that desire to care?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think a lot of it has to do with the patterns that were set in our consciousness in early life. Excuse me. Yeah, because one of the things that kids go through a lot is their boundaries aren't respected in so many ways. And not only big ways, but little ways, moment after moment. Like if a kid says, I want the red cup, not the blue cup, and we give them the blue cup. I use red cup, blue cup a lot. Or if a kid says, I want a cookie, and you say, not till after dinner. And we have all sorts of ways that from the child's experience, they're saying, this is my boundary, this is my desire, this is where I am, and the parent is saying, no. I say kids live in an ocean of no. And because of that, we get it in our systems that this isn't something to pay attention to. This isn't something that's going to be respected. And either I say that kids' response to coercion is, there's three responses. There's resistance, compliance, and distance. But all three of those aren't like genuine relating, knowing ourselves, caring about that, knowing the other person, caring about that, and finding a way for those things to merge. And so as adults, I find one of the first things to do is go back to that child inside and say, hey, your boundaries are worthwhile, kiddo. I talk to him. I put my hands like this, and I look into little Vivek's eyes all the time. And I look and I say, Vivek, your boundaries are valid, kiddo. They weren't listened to when I was you, but now I'm here for you. And I talk to little Vivek and I say, I'm here for you, and I'm gonna protect you, and I'm listening. I'm really, really listening, because you're really valid, little guy. You're really, really valid.
Man.
Yeah. And the more that shakes loose, the more that the layers and layers and layers and layers of no get loosened up, and I start to believe it. It takes a little time, but when I start to really believe it, then I start to relax a little bit. I trust that I am going to care for my boundaries, because I don't trust that I care for my boundaries. Never mind my partner. I don't trust that I care for them. That's why I fight. That's why I get tense. But when I know that I'm I can trust them, then I can relax a bit more. I can open a bit more. And then that natural sense of how are my choices impacting the system, the family system, that becomes really important to me, because I'm not in that protective state as much. I won't say anymore, because it's a lifelong journey, but not as much. Yeah.
Damn, you just drop a lot of wisdom, like really, bam. And I just, there's so much there I want to tease apart, like boundaries, respecting my limits, but also you mentioned respecting desire. I want that cookie. How do you navigate as a loving parent, a gentle parent, saying no to certain desires? Do you draw any lines as a parent, as an authority? I'm thinking when your daughter was younger, right? I have a 8-year-old daughter. We try to empower her to make choices all the time, but there are certain times where we have to draw the line. And I wonder how you navigate that as on the other side.
Yeah, for sure. The way I work that is, I'm always thinking about what are I mentioned those layers before that we build, right? So I'm looking at those layers. I'm looking at associations that I'm making with things. For example, if my kid wants the cookie, I say no, I think about what's the emotional, relational association I'm making with the cookie, with food, with nutrition, with the body, with a trusted guide. I think of all those associations. And if I say no to the cookie in that moment, then what I'm doing is I'm saying, I don't trust your wisdom with your own body in that moment. I'm saying I suggest that you trust an external authority. But by saying no, I'm making myself less trustable in that moment, because there's an automatic resistance that comes to being told no. So in all those ways, I find saying no to the cookie in the moment problematic. So generally I don't. What I do, I'll talk about the don't do and the do. I love the don't do and the do.
Like
what
the
I do,
part.
yeah, I like the do. And what I do, however, is if I notice that there's a pattern taking place that I want to shift, I don't ignore it. I just don't shift it in the moment by saying no, because it actually doesn't shift the pattern. It may be from the outside in, but not from the inside out, right? So what I do is I start to think, it's the same as I talked about boundaries. Like, I think, what are all the things that arise to boundaries? What are the things that give rise to caring for our bodies and making intelligent, considered food choices? Well, number one, it's loving our bodies. Number two, it's being able to listen to the signals of our bodies and wanting to and believing in that, believing it with enthusiasm and joy and a deep connection.
You're talking about, wait, you're talking about a terrain that demands enormous trust in your child, but also in yourself.
Yes.
Yeah. Please continue. I just wanted to.
Wow. I love when you jump in like that. I appreciate it, actually. I don't consider anything an interruption, so like jump. Okay. And so right. And so then what I do is I will start to, if I notice that there's an imbalance in food, I'll start to talk about how wonderful the body is, first of all. Not connecting it to the cookie, because then it creates that resistance I talked about earlier. But just talking about how wonderful the body is, exploring it, all the amazing things it can do and what it allows. You can't play without a body. You can't draw without a body. You can't even watch TV without a body. Let's take care of these bodies because they're so wonderful, And then we can get into a whole life exploration, a whole being exploration of what it means to care for our bodies, to love our bodies. Like, one of my sayings is, the question is a little different, but the question isn't how do I get my kid to brush their teeth? The question is, how do I get my kid to love their teeth? And it's the same thing here. So then I'll say, well, when you have a cookie, what does it mean? Because I don't want cookies to seem bad. Cookies are fantastic. And we can also learn discernment around how to have the cookie, when to have the cookie. And I want that to be something that we discover collaboratively.
Oh, you're speaking my language here.
I believe it.
I love it. But I also get a sense of you having mapped out the territory of what that actually means, because a lot of people talk about, there's all these great quotes in the consciousness, like, kids don't learn to make decisions by being told what to do. They learn to make decisions by making decisions.
Right.
Yeats said a few hundred years ago, education is not the filling of a bucket, it's the lighting of a fire. It's
Ooh, I like
awakening
that.
you don't want to make people build a boat. You want to teach them to love the sea and long for the sea, right?
Right.
Like all of that is
Right.
so
Woo,
beautiful.
that one got me.
Oh, it speaks
Yeah.
to my soul too.
Yeah.
Um, and then there's just the practicality. It's like, okay, how? It's a whole
Mm-hmm.
art there. It's like a
Mm-hmm.
ancient and something that we need to discover and learn.
Yeah.
And I get the sense that you're really steeped in that, grounded in that.
Mm-hmm.
How do we do
Mm-hmm.
that? How do we do that every moment in the tiniest, most everyday ways?
Yeah.
Oh, I love
Yeah.
that. I just want to pull back for a moment
Sure.
on that more kind of, I don't know. I kept thinking about this quote by Khalil Gibran where he talks about parenting. He says, parents are the bow and children are the arrow that we cast into the
Mm.
world. And
Mm.
sometimes I love that quote. And sometimes I think,
Yeah.
oh, that's what an uncle would say. He never had kids. It's like, oh, it's so, yeah, beef, bye. It's not so, it's so
Yeah.
beautiful, but it's
Yeah.
like you're living in the same space together 24/7.
Right.
There's like I thinking more of parenting as a martial art, as a
Right.
dojo, which is
Right.
open 24/7.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I know that you inspired me decade ago to learn more about the art of ninjutsu and
Mm-hmm.
the lineage of ninja. I've
Yeah.
been practicing Aikido. I wonder if you see any kind of like tensions and struggles in parenting that maybe martial art, dance movement, things like that have kind of woven into it also.
Yeah, I love that analogy. Both the dance and the martial arts. The martial art analogy is so great for parenting.
Mm,
In ninjutsu, we try. I think it's similar in Aikido. We try not to meet force with equal force,
mm.
because I mean, if I hit my hands like this, if this is audio, I'm punching my fists together. But if you're watching the video, you can see it, and both people end up getting hurt.
Mm,
And it's not comfortable. And so instead of that, we try and merge with the motion of the other person and
mm.
guide it away from being hurt, from us being hurt, preferably also from them being hurt. Except ninjas were assassins, so sometimes. But that's not the approach I take with my kid. But the idea, but even I can say there are some things I do want to assassinate. Like I don't want my kid to grow up with with damaged sense of self, or damaged relationship with self. And when I think in assassination terms, those are kind of things that I want to assassinate. But even then, I do it through merging and guiding.
Mm,
And I think merging and guiding is a huge thing, because the merging part is what builds the trust. The
mm,
merging part is what allows the guiding to happen. It's harder to guide if you meet force on force. It's hard to guide that at that point.
mm,
Even if all my intention is to guide, the force on force part is going to make it really hard, right? But if I can
mm.
merge, because the grandmaster of ninjutsu is Masaki Hatsumi, Soke in Japan, who I've had the fortune to train with a number of times. And he has often talked about becoming one with your enemy, loving your enemy, even as you dispatch them, love them, send them off with good thoughts into the next world. And so I think that I don't want to think of these things as my enemies.
Mm,
I want to have love even as I'm dispatching. So that's where the merging comes from. The merging comes
mm,
from love, from love and
mm.
connection. Yeah. So I feel like I put a lot of attention to, like, for example, yesterday, I've been meaning to write about this. I want to write about this one. Yesterday, my wife came to me, and we were just hanging out, and at one point, she started telling me about this creative project that she's starting. And I know that when someone reveals a creative project, it's a very tender, vulnerable thing.
Mm.
And one word of criticism can mean so much. It can last for so long. I mean, I've been shut down by people telling me one thing, and for like a year I couldn't go back to the project. I know what that feeling is like.
Mm.
So immediately I call them my laser eyes. I put my laser eyes on, and I was inwardly and outwardly, and I was focused. I was acting casual, but inside I was focused. I was like, okay, Vivek, you gotta be connecting, and you gotta merge, and you gotta be positive. I wasn't relaxed about it. And everything she said, I validated and I connected. And by the end, she felt so uplifted, and she wanted to tell me more, and wanted me involved too, which was fantastic. But it was really that moment of merging, that was conscious merging, that was so important in creating that connection. And then I was able to offer suggestions, which would have felt like criticism before, but actually felt like empowerment.
That's a beautiful example. I'm kind of thinking of the contrast to that. I can't help it.
Yeah, sure.
I feel less evolved. I have moments like that, but I think of all these times, especially right now, I have a lot of male friends who are dads and with younger kids, so they're sleep deprived, and the demands are just so much, right?
Yeah.
And we've been talking a lot about rage and frustration and resentment and shame and like all that. So I'm thinking about the outside game of parenting and martial art, of merging. I think of it as blending and guiding and wrestling with and learning together. Then there's also like the inner experience. I think as parents, sometimes we get resentful. We feel depleted. We feel angry. We know. And then there's this kind of like consciousness of like, I know I need to be patient right now. I know I need to be listening. I know I need to be yielding and taking this in, but I don't want to. I'm so frustrated, and I'm thinking about my lineage of Aikido, how my teachers always said to me, you're here to purify yourself. So look how tense you are from your week. Look how anxious you are when you're attacked and you turn away. Right. And then over the hour or two of training would always like come to a place of being more relaxed. So I think of like parenting as a training, as a process, as a wrestling together. And I'm just, I guess I want to bring more permission to parents to be imperfect. To start from a place of I'm angry, and then we get to a place of I'm listening, and that anger isn't bad, that shame isn't bad, the guilt, the fear. There's a path to move to the better place, because I think there's so much online about parenting that's all idolized. This is how you should be. This is where you need to get to. Right. And I know I've watched you give video talks and. And I know you speak to that like the humanity, the realness of parenting, how it confronts us with our own stuff, our own unhealed parts that we don't like to see. Yeah.
Well, David, before I address that, I want to know. I'm curious what you tell people about that and how you work with that. I really like to know that.
Well, I used to train a lot of the Aikido, and everyone loves that because they see, oh, I could do that, and they get all excited. But then they would go away, and they'd have this felt sense of, oh, I need to turn towards, I need to blend. They would have the physical experience as a memory, but then they would still come back and say, yeah, I didn't do that, and then you could see the shame or the guilt, Right. Yeah. So I started to tune into the feeling. And just validate the hell out of the feeling. And I start to discover, like, even in those moments where you hate your kid and you want to strangle them, or you just want to say, fuck this and leave. Yeah. There's something beautiful and authentic and real in those moments. That's misguided, misunderstanding where to go. But that emotion itself is often something that's mirrored in the family too. If one person wants to leave, or if one person is resentful, it's very likely that other people are feeling some similar vibration.
For sure.
And I think, the first step for me is always helping people to own it. I think I didn't experience this as a kid, but working with kids for 25 years, I've seen the power of being able to own, I'm really hurt right now. Yeah. I'm really angry right now. It's not your fault. Yeah. It's not about you, but it's happening in this interaction between us. Right. And as the adult, I'm trying to learn how to be real with you. And if I hide that emotion, you as a kid are going to smell it anyway, and you're going to take it personally anyway, because that's what we do when we're growing up. We think it must be about me. My parents are upset. And I think we kind of grapple with that as adults too. If we're around people who are disappointed, upset, or hurt, we start to wonder, is it me? Did I not do enough? So I've been really encouraging parents to own it, take responsibility for it, but also to reveal it somewhat. So that the child can say, oh, that's mommy or daddy's feeling. And then we can learn together, oh, mommy gets resentful when she does too much around the house. Daddy gets really mad when no one listens to him. I have those feelings too.
Right. Yeah.
And then maybe as a family, we can learn together, well, what can we do better when I feel like I'm doing too much? Can we do anything about that as a family?
Right. Yeah.
So it's kind of an edgy thing though, because most parents, they want to keep this mask of like, I'm calm, I have to be patient, I have to be this sort of Instagram parent.
Right.
And if I don't feel that way, I feel, I have to go hide in the bathroom or. So I've been working on breaking that barrier through that mask and helping parents to be authentic, but then to, like what you were saying earlier, to learn to discern better through those feelings to that place of how I need to show up.
Right.
Because it's not, for me, it's not enough to just be authentic and tell your kids you're mad at them.
Right, of course.
It's to learn how to use that anger to help you grow and help them to grow.
Yeah. And you even said just now, mad at them. It's not quite, but earlier you said it's not really mad at them, right? That's the discernment right there.
And it's so right. And then you can kind of learn as a family, whoa, look at that. Look how I just put that on you.
Yeah.
Wow. It's so easy. It's so addictive to want to say it's your fault. Well, let me take that back. Whoops. So I feel like half the work that I do with parents is also teaching them how to repair.
For sure.
Because we mess up so often as adults, right?
Yeah. One of my sayings is an apology is not a statement. It's a relational process. And it extends out beyond the moment. And it continues to bleed into the system. I talk about the word system a lot because I don't see I talk about, there's two kinds of systems that I talk about in a family. One is a pool ball system where you have one pool ball bounces up against another. And the only time they're affecting each other is that instant when they're bouncing up against each other. But that's not really how families are. The other kind of system is the liquid system. And the liquid system, and I got this idea when I was pouring a glass of tomato juice. I used to call it the tomato juice system, but it didn't really catch on. But I was pouring a glass of tomato juice, and I love tomato juice, and I was noticing how as I was pouring it, every part of it was affecting every other part of it constantly because the whole thing was swirling around. Pool balls aren't like that. And so I say every part of the system affects every other part of the system. And so I really. So my anger, whether if I'm repressing it or I'm expressing it or whatever, it's affecting like you said, it's affecting the whole system. You can't hide it from the system. It's impacting the system. So better if we know it's impacting, let's work with it consciously rather than unconsciously. Which I love what you said about that. And one of my sayings is no repression, no projection. So I don't want to repress those feelings, like you said. The reason I asked you is I had a feeling it would be very similar to what I share with parents, that I don't want to repress those feelings. I want to really honor them, because a lot of the time those feelings come from me protecting something valuable, protecting something inside of me, protecting my sense of self, especially if it wasn't protected as a child and throughout my formative years. There's this, I want to protect it, and the threat often gets amplified because of that stuff that's inside. It's, yes, I'm tired. Yes, I'm angry. And then I can recognize that a lot of that's coming up is not about this moment. It's the same with our kids too. A lot of what comes up for them isn't about that moment. It's like there's these videos on YouTube and Instagram where people take a watermelon and they wrap an elastic band around it. You put one elastic band around a watermelon, nothing happens. But they keep putting them until there's hundreds of elastic bands. And then all of a sudden, bam, the whole thing explodes with that one elastic band. But if all you see is that one elastic band, you don't know why the explosion happened.
Yeah.
So I try and really help parents tune into all the other elastic bands so that they can give them, like you said, they give themselves that love, compassion, the empathy, talking to the little one. And so all my parents are like, Vivek, I was talking to little Alicia yesterday, and she told me that, like, oh, I love that my parents are starting to. I say my parents, the parents that I work with. I call them my parents. It sounds endearing that way.
Yeah.
And they all talk to their kids this way, with all this love and compassion, and they cry together and they hold each other and they understand each other, and they have this beautiful relationship forming.
Yeah.
And yeah, because like you said, it's very edgy, because there's a point where we can express our emotions to our kids and they learn that this is a natural human thing, and there's a point where we express it and they become afraid of those feelings. We don't want them to become afraid of anger by being afraid of my anger. We want them to be able to embrace their own anger by watching me embrace my anger.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's where the difference is. And we won't be perfect at it.
Yeah.
Every single day we're going to make mistakes. I call myself a mistake-making machine, just so that I can be aware of that, Because I work with parents every week. Thankfully, I feel very fortunate, and the parents I work with they're screaming at their kids. Some of them are still hitting their kids and punishing, and really, really trying hard not to, but the instincts are all still there, So we're working slowly to shift those instincts, but with no shame, because shame doesn't inspire change, So like, how can we become blameless in the situation so that we can take responsibility? And I find that the beginning, the foundation of self-compassion is the foundation of everything for me.
Oh, there's so much. I'm taking notes now because I want to ask about this. I want to ask about that.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I love where this is going, and I want to throw in some more metaphors.
Sure.
I love these. This one is from emotion-focused therapy, and they motion-focused family therapy also, and which is coming from this neck of the woods in Ontario in the last decade. It's really powerful stuff in terms of the mental health field, different approaches for parenting. This one is the one that really teaches parents about emotions, their own emotions, the power of their emotions. And they did some studies where they found, like, they took girls who had eating disorders. And, I worked with girls with eating disorders. It's like one of the hardest. The risk is so high, the prevalence, it's pretty devastating, how many of them get worse, even with therapy, even with so many different social groups. And they found that if they did one thing, if they looked at the parents' fear and guilt and shame, and they helped the parents to resolve their own fear, guilt, and shame, and to give apologies to their daughters, that they dramatically increased the likelihood of the daughters getting better without any other variables, without them getting their own therapy. It's just the parent cleared up their own emotion. A lot of the girls would recover towards health.
Wow. Yeah.
And it's such right. And it was so dramatic compared to all the other interventions. So I'm a big fan of this for a long time. And one of the metaphors that they give is every hard emotion, sadness, anger, fear, is like a dark tunnel. And our kids need to navigate through it in their body, through a train in that dark tunnel. And most of the time as parents, we invalidate. We say, oh, don't feel that. Don't go, oh, you're a good kid. Like, especially if kids come home and say, I feel worthless. I feel like a piece of shit.
Right.
Oh my God, honey, you're great. I love you.
Right.
We want to be
rescue urge.
And what it does, it says, don't go down that tunnel. It's terrifying. I don't want to go down there. You don't want to go down there. So then the child has to look at you and make a decision in that moment. Either they invalidate their own experience and say, you're right, mommy. I am a good person. And this feeling is, I don't want it. So they dissociate.
Yeah.
Or they say, yeah, that's nice, but you don't get it. I'm stuck in this dark pit, lonely, and I can't move forward because you didn't show me how, but I can't leave because you're full of shit.
Right.
You're telling me my reality is not real, but I feel
Right.
yucky in my body. So,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, and our job in some way is to help navigate through that tunnel, but we can't push the train. We can't
Right.
drive their locomotive. We have to
Right.
show them this is how you go through shame. This is how you go
Right.
through rage,
Yeah.
fear, grief. You can learn too. We can be their side coach,
Mm.
walking with them as they learn to get through that tunnel. How
Yeah.
is always so moving to think about that.
Yeah. That's beautiful, for sure. Yeah. Well, I feel like wanting to take a deep breath when I hear that. Yeah. It takes a lot of slowing down to resist that rescue urge, the fix it urge. Yeah. One of my sayings is empathy is fixing. And, yeah, being able to sit with our kids in those difficult emotions and trust the process of them going through it and not wanting to rush them through it. Now, be with them in the journey, not rush them to a destination.
Yeah.
And to like you said, I love the word validate, to validate their experience. Because it is hard to feel worthless sometimes, and life does make us feel worthless sometimes. And I feel that way too, kiddo. I really do sometimes.
And some of it is the soup that we're in. We live in a
Mm,
very capitalist, narcissistic culture.
mm,
What Charles Eisenstein calls the myth or the spell of forgetting and the spell of separation.
yeah,
We live in this soup where that that that's the flavor in the soup,
yeah,
right? Human
yeah,
beings in life is not intrinsically valuable. It's all about how
right,
much you have, how much you produce,
right,
how
right,
popular you are.
yeah,
That's in the soup that we're all drinking just by living in the society.
yeah, yeah,
So in a way, it's appropriate to go, oh, gross, once in a
mm,
while, right?
mm-hmm.
To realize that we've drunken that in somewhere.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure. Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah,
I think what you just said a moment ago too is that the hard part about it is that it's like what Brene Brown says about sympathy is looking down that dark tunnel and saying, ah, that really sucks. Good luck with that. And
mm,
empathy is like, I'm going to go into that dark tunnel with you. Oh,
mm-hmm.
I don't want to be here either. This is reminding me of my own worthlessness or my
Yeah,
own fears.
yeah,
And because I'm in the dark now with you, I feel what you feel.
yeah,
And that takes enormous courage and
yeah,
trust. And I think most parents just don't even never had gone through the tunnel themselves or had
right,
anyone go through them. So they're feeling completely incapable of guiding their child through it until
right.
they've learned and been supported to go down there.
Yeah, yeah, and to recognize that the process of going through the tunnel, you come out of the other side of the tunnel. It's not an
That,
infinite tunnel.
no.
One of my other saying, I keep saying one of my sayings. One of my sayings is saying one of my sayings because I have so many. Is speedy repression is not resilience.
Mm,
It can appear so. A lot of times people say, "Oh, kids are so resilient," but I think what happens a lot of the time in the situations where we're saying that is kids have learned speedy repression.
mm,
The exact description that you gave, where you say, "Oh no, no, you're not worthless," and and you described I mentioned resistance and compliance as two sides of the same coin. You described both. They either say, "Okay, you're right," or they have to resist and distance themselves.
mm-hmm.
And what I want to do with kids and myself in my own process is I want to be able to say, "Hey, it's painful and it's hard, and it might rip you up in a lot of ways, but
Mm,
it's safe to go through these emotions, and
mm,
we will come out the other side." At first, it's we, because the I will come out the other side. The knowledge I will come out the other side comes from the embodied experience that we will come out the other side together when kids are young.
mm.
Because they say self-regulation comes from co-regulation,
Yes.
and I really want my kids to feel that they can be safe going through those hard things. I don't want to say, no, you don't feel that. No, it's not. You don't have to feel that. I want to say, yeah, of course you're going to feel that.
Yeah.
There's really no way around it, actually. Like you said, in today, it's the soup, right? There's no way around it in today's society. So what's the most
Mm,
effective way that we can work with those feelings? And I think that going through the tunnel, like you said, is really it. And I like that you mentioned courage. I like that you mentioned courage, because I always want to validate our courage. When I have a moment of courage, I notice a moment of courage with my kids, where I'm being courageous or they're being courageous. I always want to validate that, because you asked about the martial arts. That's part of martial arts, right? I'm frightened. The enemy is before me is huge, and they have swords and they want to stab me, and I'm going in because I know my cause is worthy. And I go in and I face the blades, and I face the danger. I'm not unafraid, shaken on the inside, but I've learned to love my fear. I've learned to validate my fear and make the choices that align with my understanding. But in order to do that, warriors have to train a lot. And you don't just pick up a sword one day and jump into the battlefield and you're okay. That doesn't work that way. There's a lot of practice. There's a lot of practice that goes into it. And I think practice is one of the essences of martial arts. And I talk to my parents about practice all the time. I say you can practice in big moments, but you can also practice in every single little moment. Like the cookie example again. That moment where your kid asks for a cookie and you get resistant. And you think like, no, they can't have the cookie. But in that moment, we can look at the deeper availability to us. We can slow down and relax our fear. We can relax the tension. Eating this cookie does not mean they're going to eat cookies only for the rest of their lives, right? It's that catastrophization. But my fear is there. My fear is genuine. And it's a good fear, because I don't want them to do that. I do want them to have a positive relationship with food and with their body, and balanced, to understand the social aspect of food, the enjoyment aspect of food, and the health aspect of food, and put all of it together in a well-balanced thing. That's what I want to teach, but that's a long-term teaching thing. I'm not going to teach that by just saying no. I'm going to teach that with a much more integrated approach. But to get to that, we have to deal with that moment of fear so that it doesn't make our decision. You can feel the fear without operating from it, basically.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. And it makes me think about what you said earlier too, about we need to know that there's an end to the tunnel. And I think this is the tragic part of, I think emotionally, and I'm including myself here.
Yeah.
Most of my life, I was not even in kindergarten emotionally. I was a high functioning adult with very little understanding of emotion.
Yeah.
And as I learned the emotional intelligence and emotional wisdom, and understanding what each emotion, especially the dark, hard ones, where they take me. Fear takes me to courage. I can't develop courage without fear.
Yeah.
Right? Shame. Oh, it's such a yucky feeling. And guilt. But guilt brings me to restoring relationships. Shame brings me to authenticity, to integrity. So I can't get there without going through that tunnel.
Yeah.
I think mapping that out and showing people that there's a path, there are tools, there are communities, there are resources. It's a training that you actually start to see you're getting better, and you're feeling happier, and you have less negative emotions and more positive emotions over time. And those negative emotions will still come back, but they're not so painful or difficult because you know how to get through them.
Right.
I have one of my mentors was a jujitsu teacher and a social worker, Paul Benally.
That's a great combination.
Yeah. And he used to say, it's not about feeling better, even though we know you're going to feel better over time. It's about getting better at feeling and developing that muscle, that heart muscle to like, I can hold my fear. I can hold your fear. And that's why I'm capable of being here with you when you're scared and walking with you.
Yeah. And I love that you're holding you held your arms out. You expanded your arms when you were saying that. That's one of the things I actually tell parents to do, is hold their arms out so they can feel the breadth and the width of their capacity, to hold, to open, and to hold things. Because we want our kids to be able to feel those wings, or feel those strong limbs of our emotional self that they can lean on and rest on and trust.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. I want to throw in another piece here, because I just had a conversation with a lot of dads who are feeling trapped, suffocated. They're just going through a hard time. And it's so common as men for us to feel like, oh, I'm cramped. The baby needs me. I can't sleep. My wife is, super needy. We're isolated from our friends, our community. We're holed up in this cabin. I think
Right.
of the metaphor, like you said, liquid system. I think of the metaphor, we're all in a boat together, a little rowboat.
Right. Yeah.
Everybody's, feeling everybody's little tiny movements.
Right.
And that, and this theme of, I love the arms put it up, because that reminds me that I am free.
Mm.
I can create space for myself. When I
Mm.
pursue my own joy, my own passion, I can bring that and keep that in the family system. I don't
For
have to
sure.
be like, I'm so cramped, I need to get out of here.
Yeah.
I think a lot of dads, and I see moms too struggle with this, but I'm just tuned into a lot of dads lately of just
Mm.
like, how do we stay free and alive
Mm.
and feeling our fullness as men while being so dedicated to cleaning the dishes, being in the house, being
Mm.
providing. And I'm thinking about stuff that we practice, martial arts, dance. I'm thinking about playfulness and humor,
Mm-hmm.
and just the need to, when I don't express my emotions around my family, that's when I get
Yeah.
tired. That's when I get cranky. If I can
Mm.
find a way to express my crankiness and bring
Yeah.
it out in a playful way,
Right.
then we
Yeah.
can laugh, we can get through it. I feel relief.
Yeah.
I don't need that nap, or I don't need to zone out on the phone. But I'm still learning this, I'm
Yeah.
44 and I'm still learning how to say things that are uncomfortable or play
Right.
with them
Right.
instead of kind of, like you said, repress.
Yeah.
um, yeah, there's so much to being a parent. Gosh.
Yeah. And I think what you just said is so beautiful, because actually I use the word beautiful because I wrote an article not too long ago that's was entitled "My Anger is Beautiful."
Hmm.
And I really want to, what I'm working on is going beyond. I don't want to say going beyond, because that's comparative. What I want to do is I want to keep evolving so that I don't only think, okay, my negative emotions are acceptable, but I want to see them as equally beautiful as my positive emotions. Actual beauty,
Hmm.
where I
Hmm.
can look at that anger, then I can look at my kids' anger and go, "Ah, it's beautiful. I love that." I don't have
Hmm.
to say that to them, because that can feel invalidating too in the long run. But 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 I do want to feel it. I want to feel that all of my human expression, all of it, from the lightest light to the darkest dark, from the heaviest to the the featheriest. I want to feel all of it as equally beautiful.
Hmm.
Sometimes the expression isn't equally beautiful, and I think that's what's important for us to learn. But it's hard to get to the point of being able to express that way if we're judging it.
Hmm.
And so I remember there was this kid I was working with who he got angry a lot, and was always being told that his anger was a problem and nobody's going to want to play with him and all this kind of stuff. And it didn't shift his anger. And
Wow.
I suggested to the parents, why don't you tell him that you think his anger is beautiful? And I remember I went for a home visit. This is before COVID, but I went for a home visit with them. And I do home visits with families, which I think is wonderful. Sometimes it's like an hour or two I spend with them, but I've done a couple of like long-term home visits where I actually move in for a week or two, and it's coaching morning to night.
Whoa.
Yeah, I become part of the family. Kids love me. Like within like a minute or two, kids are all over me and they love me because I know how to tune into kids.
Hmm.
And I become part of the family. And just morning to night, I'm whispering in the parents' ears. I'm adjusting the way we do things, suggesting adjustments to how we do things. And usually I end with a public parenting workshop that the parents kind of organize at the end of that. So it's a
Hmm.
beautiful experience. It's transformative for all of us.
Hmm.
And but in this case, this was a shorter one. And the mom had said to the kid, "Your anger is beautiful," and he exploded. He didn't like it. And I said to him, "Do you know why we're saying your anger is beautiful?" He said, "No." I said, "Because when you're angry, you're recognizing that you're not being treated how you want to be treated, that you're not getting the kind of experience that you want, and you're angry about that. And you're saying, I deserve this. I want this." He said, "Yes, that's what I'm saying." I said, "And that's beautiful." He said, "Yes, it is." And all of a sudden he saw how beautiful his anger was, right? And he was like, it has a purpose. It's
Yeah.
pointing. And I say that we have our compass, our inner compass, has 2 points to it. One is the positive emotions leading us towards, and the other is the painful emotions that teach us what we don't want and teach us how to move. Both those things line up when we can see them as 2 points on the compass. Neither one is better or worse.
Yeah. Oh
Yeah.
gosh. I'm cheering you on. And I love the beauty of that is that when the parents starts to see that, they start to validate their own anger, because they have anger too.
For sure.
Like I often like to point out that I have a parental entitlement syndrome. I demand my child pay attention to me when I think it's important that they pay attention to me. Or as a spouse, I have a spousal entitlement syndrome.
Right.
And there's just these unconscious expectations that are a little crazy when you voice them, but we all have them, right?
Yeah.
And we have all this emotion, and I love that. Anger is beautiful. It's powerful. I love translating it with families and thinking of like emotions as different elements, like fear is like electricity and anger is like fire. So it can like burn, but it can transform. Necessary. It's just a life force. You got to deal with it. So you're either going to study it and like master it, or you're going to be like, I'm afraid of this, right?
And get burned.
Yeah. Or you're going to get out of control. So there's so many. I love how you engage with emotion, and I feel like it's the final frontier in terms of really understanding what's really going on in the interaction between us.
Yeah.
It's so emotional. I could say all the right words and practice nonviolent communication language. And if I'm annoyed with you or judging you, you're going to be like, get out of my face.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. And the beautiful thing is, so one of my acronyms, I have a lot of acronyms too, and one of my acronyms is SMABO, and that stands for Small Moments Affect Big Ones. And I have this one parent who bought tattoo markers, and she writes SMABO on her arm so she remembers. and I'm so glad I love that they make signs of all the things that I teach, and they write it on their arms, and they get together with their kids and they make art projects to put up the signs, and like lots of reminders all around the place really help. I find it really help. But SMABO, small moments affect big ones. So we have a lot of when the last elastic band on that watermelon gets there and explosions, that's not that at that point you want to contain the explosion. It's harder to do like subtle practice in those moments. Those are big moments and you have to deal with them. Like your kid is yelling and screaming and swearing and throwing stuff all over the place. But in between those big moments, we have lots of little moments that we have on opportunities to work and practice these things. So like, for example, my kid's going to bed, and I hear the story a lot. My kid's going to bed, and I ask them, do you want a glass of water? And they say no, and they get into bed and they're tucked in, and then we're just about to leave and they say, can I have a glass of water now? Right? So in that moment, the tension comes, my shoulders tense, my throat closes up. My mind goes, but I just freaking asked you 10 minutes ago if you wanted water, so this wouldn't happen. And this happens every night. Why are you doing this to me is the feeling that comes up, right? And so in that moment, but I'm not yelling and screaming. This is not the kind of thing that makes me yell and scream. It's just the tension. I'm like, and my answer would be, okay, I'll get you a glass of water. And so there's like a small moment of that tension, right?
Yeah.
Now, of course, the kid feels that. Like you were saying earlier, the kids feel those things, right? So that's the moment where I can practice. It's not a huge thing. It doesn't require me going all the way into like really controlling myself. I can take a breath and I can go, okay, I can no repression, no projection. So I can not repress. I can say, okay, Vivek, you're frustrated, you're tired, you've been coaching all day, and you really want your kid to trust your wisdom, but they didn't in that moment. They listened to themselves, which is actually what I really want. And they listen to themselves. But it's okay to be frustrated. Of course you're frustrated, my friend. I love you. I love you for it. Now let's see what we can do for our kids. And I go, and I turn around and I change and I say, hey, kiddo, of course I want to get you a glass of water. I was frustrated for a minute, but that's my own stuff. Had a hard day. And I didn't really mean to project it on you. Getting you a glass of water is going to be the most wonderful thing I can possibly do right now. And not only that, I want to get you, I'm going to think about how much I love you when I open the tap. And when I fill the water, I'm going to be filling it with love, and I'm going to bring it to you with all my joy. And so I managed to make a little change. And those little changes and those little moments, they add up. That's what Smabble is all about, paying attention to the small moments. It's like I think I don't believe it financially, but but there's a saying, take care of the dimes and nickels and the dollars will take care of themselves. That's like an old saying, right?
Yeah.
I think it's like that emotionally in a lot of ways, that we ignore.
Kind of accumulated interest impact.
Too, yeah. That's accumulated interest is great. That's exactly it. And we can do that. We can accumulate that same stuff, create those layers, create conscious layers, because unconscious layers are happening all the time. And the more I can tune into those conscious layers and develop them for myself, and use those small moments, the remote and the spaghetti on the floor, and walking in and not putting your shoes away, all the little things all throughout the day. I have so many. I mean, you never have to wait more than 5 minutes for an opportunity to practice, really.
And your example, I'm just projecting myself into your shoes, because it's like that just happened 2 days ago. I see where you got to, and I'm like, whoa, that's amazing. I probably would get halfway there to like, instead of rolling my eyes, say, fine, I'll get your glass of water.
Yeah.
I probably would get to a place of like, you know what, hon, I'm really tired. I'd love for you to go get your own glass of water. That would be awesome. And I think it's so unique in every moment.
Right.
I love you. Here's a hug. I'm going to go lie down. I'm exhausted.
Right.
I notice that I dote over my daughter a lot, and I need to sometimes step back and let her learn her own stuff and get frustrated and do her own thing, and then feel the pride that she did that herself. And then there are other times where I can like, get her stuff. So I feel like that moment is so ripe, and each of us need to go through it differently. Yeah. But the key, what you said, is no repression, no projection. You took it back. You took ownership. Yeah. And you cleared within yourself what was going on, and then you were able to make a choice. Just like you want them to make a choice, you made a choice, and you made a very generous, loving choice that I admire. I want to be more like that. Yeah.
Well, I think I don't think that the choice itself was the point. It was the choice point that was the point, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that in that moment, what I like to do is I like to tune into what's the need that's really being expressed by my kid. Is it a relational need? Do they need to feel an unreasonable care from me in that moment? Then that's where I'm going to go. Do they want the water? Is it actually the water? Then go get the water, kid. No problem. Go get the water. Because a lot of parents are really stuck that their kid shouldn't get out of bed once they're in bed. So that's where I was coming from. But like if it's the water, or if it's like an experience for them to have agency over themselves, and I'm like, go get the water, kiddo. That's a great idea. But then I feel inside, they're like, oh no, can you get it for me? Then I'm like, something else is happening. They're longing from something from earlier in the day. Maybe I dismissed them earlier, and this is their opportunity to try and get that connection back. All day they've been waiting for a moment to get that connection back, and I can feel it.
So this is beautiful. I'm so glad that you're pointing this out. So it's not about the choice. It's not even about there's some good empowerment there for the parent. But what's really, I think what you're saying, which really strikes me as very powerful and wise, is that when I get out of my own way and I clear my own stuff, then I can actually pay attention to what's needed in this moment. It's not about me or them. It's about what's needed in this relationship. And sometimes what's needed is for me to step back and they step forward and take care of their own stuff. But sometimes it's for me to do the unreasonable thing because it's an act of love. It has a meaning to it. Yeah. I love that. And
you can't cookie cut or something like that, right?
Yeah. How do the only way I know how to approach that kind of discernment is I talk about the heart. I talk about difference between heart, gut, head, gut, and heart. And I walk people through, this is your mind, this is its strategy, its intelligence, this is what it can do, this is what your gut's good at, and this is what your heart does. And for me, the heart is that where that discernment comes of like, what's really going on here? What's the need? What's being asked of me?
Right.
What could make this moment whole? And it's usually extremely simple. It's like, yeah, I'll get you that glass of water, honey.
Yeah.
Love you.
Yeah.
Or, oh, it's okay. You can do it. Go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's so simple.
Yeah.
And then my mind can be all into the story of, but I need her to become more independent and blah, blah,
right.
blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And the heart just like, just trust this.
Yeah.
It just knows. How do you, is that how you find it, or how do you find that discernment?
Yeah, for sure. My name actually means discernment. That's what Vivek means.
Perfect.
Yeah, and it's one of my favorite things to teach kids. And I think discernment. Is an integration of all those parts that you mentioned, because you just now in your own example, you went into your gut, but then you had all these intellectual questions that you were asking, and you were integrating the two, right? And you were using your intellect to ask the gut, and the feelings of the heart informed those things, right? So it's really, how can we see this whole thing, the intellect, the heart, the gut, and the body as well. And if you believe in that kind of thing, I always say that because not everybody believes it, but if you believe in the spirit and the soul, that kind of thing as well, the deep consciousness, you take all of these things as an integrated system. Again, it's a fluid system. It's a liquid system. I am a complex liquid system unto myself. And the people I interact with, including you and I having this interaction, the other person is a complex liquid system in and of themselves. And then when you put the two liquid systems together, it's a really complex liquid system, right? And so, but just talking about myself, my mind, my intellect has a lot of power. It's able to discern things. It's able to label things. I love being able to label things. I think being able to label anger versus frustration versus upset versus tension versus
distinguishing between things.
And then my body, my gut, it has these feelings that come, and I can learn to discern what the different feelings mean. Like I feel it, I practice it. Like, for example, I practice listening to that gut feeling. So this morning I made a cup of tea, and it's chamomile in here. And I chose the chamomile by looking at the different teas and listening to my gut. Literally, I would put my hand to one, I got that ugh feeling. Put my hand on another, I got that feeling. Put my hand on the chamomile. Okay, chamomile today, chamomile. And then I'm like, I know that it's chamomile, and I celebrate. Yes, I heard that, Vivek. And I don't ignore those little. That's Smabo. I don't ignore those little moments.
Yeah. And
then the heart, my feeling. My deep feeling, and this is something that, a lot of us are taught not to feel our deep feelings. So a lot of times, a lot of the journey is reclaiming that capacity, I couldn't cry for years, for decades I couldn't cry. Now I cry, fall on the floor, snot everywhere. But it took a long time for me to get to that point, I had to first I had to believe it was a worthwhile thing to do. And then I had to put in the work to do it. But I freed up a lot of those knots over the years. I mean, my kid's 23. I've been practicing this. I'm 52. I'm married 27 years. I've been practicing every day for decades. So this is not something that happens quick. I don't want to act like it's quick. I always remind people that I'm, but same as martial arts. I never thought I was special. I just practiced more than my students. I've been practicing for decades more than my students. Of course, I'm better than you. I'm not better than you. I'm just better than you. You know what I mean? I'm better at it. I didn't even let my kids call me, my students call me sensei, because I just wanted to be I wanted to be the advanced student in the class. But they still respected me because of what I could do and because of who I was. Yeah. So I try and integrate those things. I try and work each of them so that I have a relationship with them: the intellect, the heart, the gut, the spirit, the body. And then I find that they all work together to inform that moment. Yeah.
Love it.
Integration is cool.
Integration is cool.
Yeah.
I feel like, Carl Jung once said, what was true in the morning of my life becomes a lie in the afternoon. And I think about as we get older, What is it? What is the purpose now? Is it when the skin sheds another layer? You know, I was so consumed with my own identity when I was younger and accomplishing things. And then I was so consumed with helping people, helping the world, and healing everything. And then I had cancer a couple years ago, and I became concerned with just being present with the people I love.
Right, right. That's an experience we share.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So much there, eh? That
Yeah.
awakening of like death. Death could be here soon.
Yeah.
You don't know.
Yeah.
Are you awake?
Yeah.
Are you doing what you're
Yeah.
here to do?
For
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Just yesterday, I felt the point of my scar was suddenly got a sharp pain. I was like, oh yeah, don't forget that, Vivek. I still remember you just helped me remember, David. I'm gonna jump to a story.
Yeah.
I still remember the day that I told my daughter that I had cancer. I remember that I had to really work up to it in my head, and I had to trust her so much. I had to trust her so much not to try and rescue her, to trust that she would have her emotional experience and to be with her in it. And I can remember every look on her face. We were driving. I picked her up. She was in grade 12, and I picked her up and was driving her home from school. And I told her as we were driving and listening to music is one of our things because I drove her to school every single day, all throughout, from kindergarten to grade 12, and which I treasure those moments. And I still remember every look on her face. I could read all the thoughts and the emotions and watching her body twitch and move and feeling the whole and just being with her in that and not saying it's going to be okay. I didn't say it's going to be okay. I didn't because I didn't even know. And I didn't say that. I let her have her whole feeling, but I sat in the tunnel. I sat with it in her, and I waited for her to like do her process. And I watched her come out of it a little bit and look at me. And then I said something like, we're in this together, kiddo. I didn't say it's going to be okay. I was careful not to say that. I said, we're in this together. Do you have any questions? Here's what's happening. Here's the plan. How do you feel? And we talked about it, and we kept talking about it. With my mom, when I told my mom, it was a little different because she's an adult.
Yeah.
And I said to her, I said, listen, I'm about to tell you something and I don't want you to give me sympathy. I can't handle sympathy right now. I need to stay in my strength right now. I need to stay in this particular mindset. And if you give me some motherly sympathy, it's going to be really hard. I need you to be strong. I need you to have courage. And she was like, I'm terrified. I said, good. let the terror. She was so grateful that I did that because she was able to be really, really solid. And then I told her and she was like, okay, I trust your process. And she probably said it's going to be okay, but that's okay, because she was really strong and she was able to think. And then after that initial moment, I was able to hold space for her emotions. But at first I asked for what I needed. This is kind of connects to you talking about expressing ourselves. When I'm talking to friends and I'm expressing pain and they start to say it's okay. Like, for example, one thing I live with is failure consciousness. I'm going to fail. I'm not going to reach the people I want to reach. I'm not going to help anybody. And no one's listening to me because, I'm sharing this message. I'm fortunate. My reach right now, my audience is a little over 100,000 people online with the different Facebook groups that I have and the 2 pages that I run. The total number is about 100,000. And even with that, I still think, oh, I'm not doing anything. The mind can trick us so well.
Yeah, yeah.
And like I just posted a post 2 days ago, and within 24 hours, it had climbed over 70,000 views. I was amazed, and I'm still those thoughts come to me. So when I share that with friends, and they go, oh no, Vivek, you're doing this, you're doing that. I'm like, stop, wait, that's not helping me. Could you like back up and do empathy first, please? I really need you to validate my emotional experience, and then we can look at the intellectual misunderstanding I might have. But that stuff comes from a deep place. I want to honor that, And so asking for what I need a lot of the time can be really helpful. And I didn't do that. I didn't want to put that burden on my kid when she was young. But as she's gotten older and she's learned about empathy because that's her soup. Like I made sure her soup was an empathetic soup, and she's learned about it experientially. I can ask her so much more now for what I want, and she's so open to it, because it's how she's learned human relationships are about, and so like we can really, I think being able to ask people for what we want in a way that doesn't have shame and blame and coercion and force in it, but is really saying, this is what I need to feel my wholeness. You know, you talked about tuning into the wholeness. Our wholeness is part of that, right? What do I need from my wholeness in this moment? And I think that's being able to love ourselves enough to be able to ask those things is a profound practice. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just drinking that in, everything you said. I'm just learning in some ways to ask for what I need directly.
Yeah.
I've gotten so good at reading other people's needs and helping them articulate what they need.
Yeah.
And get their own needs met and meet their own needs and help each other meet needs. The edge for me is to say to my wife or my daughter, I need some space. I need to step back. I love you and I'll be back. Or I need to be held, or I need just someone to listen to me and don't try to fix it. Don't give me advice. Just listen.
That's beautiful.
And not wait till I get angry and hungry and then, shout it out.
Right.
Damn you for not listening correctly. But it's more like to come from that place of, I have a friend, Mark Silver, who teaches business and from a Sufi perspective. And I've been really moved over the years from the Sufi practice of speaking from the longing as we reach to the divine, but also as we reach to each other, to speak from the longing. There's my empty bowl. I'm not saying it's your job to fill it, but here it is. And I wonder if you could contribute a little bit. And I will contribute to my own bowl too. And I will ask the divine also.
Yeah.
I think of taking responsibility for my own needs is a three-way job.
Right.
To reach for something greater, to give to myself, but also to ask for what I need. And for me, that's my edge these days, is to ask the people around me. That's where I feel most vulnerable. And
for sure.
Thank you for speaking to that.
That is a very vulnerable thing. Yeah. It's vulnerable, I think, partially, like I mentioned a few times, from our past, not having the message that those things are worthy. It's vulnerable because in reality, we could receive a no from that. And then that's really painful and scary. And sometimes we don't want to ask just because we don't want to receive that no. I'd rather have the no in advance and just like make it my own no than take the chance of not getting it. Yeah.
I'm rejecting myself, so you can't reject me.
Right. Yeah. And I think the word vulnerable means that you can be hurt, it's otherwise it's not vulnerable. Right. And so I think that for me, vulnerability with the people that I'm close to, part of that vulnerability is exposing the parts of me that can be hurt to them and giving them access to it. If I don't give my wife access to the part of me that can be hurt, there's always going to be a separation there. I'm always going to be protecting that. I need to put that in her care. And I also need to be okay with the fact that she's not always going to be able to manage it exactly how I want her to. Like you said, you're not listening to me correctly. I like that phrase. That's so good. I'm gonna repeat that one, and I'll credit you for it. But I really like that. You're not listening to me correctly. And but I find that this is where courage comes in too. I find that the experience of being vulnerable can be so beautiful. And just not too long ago, I was vulnerable with a friend, a friend that I had been having a friendship with, and it had been building. And they asked me, they said they want to have more vulnerability for me because I really take my time before I'm vulnerable with someone. And so then I ended up getting hurt in that relationship, and I'm still carrying a lot of grief and pain around it. And it's making me want to close myself into my little box and never again, Vivek, never again. Fuck that, never again. I'm never going to but I don't want to do that. Right. So I'm like, I don't do that in the long term. In the short term, I think a bit of protection is really useful. I think it's useful to allow ourselves to close up and heal a little bit, especially if we do it consciously.
Our wounds and
and
huddle around people who understand.
And, but I don't want to close up permanently. I want to start opening that box up again and make sure it doesn't impact all my relationships.
Yeah.
Because I'm a very sensitive, emotional, delicate human.
Me too.
Yeah. And I think people when they see all the stuff that I write, they can they can forget that, because I share stuff that's really empowering. But I've got to that through traveling through hell, really. And one of my articles that I wrote a while back was called "I Am Not a Nice Person," and and because it's true, I'm not. If you actually look at my past, I've learned a lot of things and grown and continue to grow. I'm on an ever evolving path, but I've been through a lot in my life, and I've hurt a lot of people in my life, and I hold and I hold that I hold that inside of me. I don't ignore it. I let it inform my experience, because because I care. I care, and I also recognize that I was doing the best that I could in those moments with all the stuff that I had. So
I think
try
about
and be compassionate.
Yeah. I think about when Martin Luther King said about power without love is reckless and abusive, and love without power is sentimental and anemic. And part of power, recognizing power, is recognizing we have impact on each other all the time, regardless of intention.
Yeah.
The absence, the forgetfulness, the neglect, that has an impact.
Yeah.
Positive and negative impacts all the time. I walk and I crush some blade of grass. There's always an impact. And to contend with that is to step through guilt and shame, right?
Yeah.
So what children have to learn at certain developmental stages is like, I make an impact.
Yeah.
And the loving part of that, like the power and love, like I didn't understand. I went through my 20s and even my 30s sometimes being a total asshole, self-absorbed, selfish, going after what I wanted, hurting people. Or I was like a total pleaser, nice guy, trying to anticipate every need and become a servant of, and only when I started to wrestle with the power and love together, did I start to have two wings that could fly straight.
Right.
So I want to honor that. I hear that in you, and I'm so grateful that you're out there in the world helping parents and in such an authentic way and in such a vulnerable and real way. I've been working with families for 25 years, and I've been in my practice working with families, I've been looking for other places to send them. And there's just so many great resources nowadays for parents, but I find that so much of it it's reduced too much into tactics and strategy. Just do this. Step, and that will fix your kid. Or it's kind of this idolized, you just have to heal yourself, transcend your feelings, bypass it all, and just be kind, be patient, be in this kind of perfect parent halo. But it's gritty, it's challenging, it's confronting to be a conscious parent.
For sure.
And it's a never-ending practice, right? Like you get woken up in the middle of the night, there's the dojo. And so I'm just so delighted. I want to send my families to you, because I'm getting more and more committed to working with just men, just fathers and men. I see a need there that's so great. And
for sure, that's a big work to take on, an important one.
I love what you're doing. I want to give power and love to you and your work in some way, and any way I can.
Thank you, David. I appreciate that. I'd love to share where people can find me and find my stuff.
Please.
So I'm most active on Facebook. My Facebook page is Meaningful Ideas, and I write there all the time. There's so many articles there, like well over 100 articles that I've written there. And tons of videos, because I go live a lot, and every time I go live, it's just like this. Every time I go live, it's like this. And there's probably 100 videos of me talking on Facebook. And so go to Meaningful Ideas and subscribe there. I also have a YouTube channel, also Meaningful Ideas, And I have over 60 videos right now and another at least 10 in the can. Some are like 5-minute videos and some are full 2-hour workshops. Because I do a lot of workshops. I get asked to speak a lot at conferences and stuff, fortunately. And if anybody out there wants to invite me to come and speak at a conference when we're able to open up, I'd love to do so. And so that's also Meaningful Ideas on YouTube. Instagram as well, although I'm not as active on Instagram. But Alanis Morissette shared one of my parenting sayings a little while back, and that was my first big celebrity share. I was really happy with that. She's a big proponent of conscious parenting, and so that's great. The big Facebook group that I run, co-run with a bunch of other admin, that was started with my business partner Sujai Johnston. It's called Gentle Parents Unite. We have over 70,000 members. We're 7 years old, and we have over 70,000 members. So it's a big parenting group, and the admin all come from a very similar philosophy, the non-coercive collaborative philosophy, and a really great supportive space. And then if you want to work with me personally, which I highly recommend, if you want to work with me personally, I have a membership space. I don't really do so much one-on-one coaching, but I have a paid membership subscription space. And in there, I do weekly group coaching calls. I do a weekly meditation. I do a weekly class, a workshop every Thursday. I go for an hour and a half talking about going into detail. And all of those videos are all for members only. They're all stored. So there's like about 60 of those full classes. There's a lot of stuff. So there's a lot of live chances to work live and interactive with me and my partner, Sujai, who is just as brilliant as I am, if I may say so ourselves. And to find us there, you go to gentleparentsunite.com/membership, and you can find us there. And we make it very reasonable, and because we don't want anyone to not have support because of monetary reasons. And so, yeah, that's how you can find me. And I would love to see everybody over there. And because when I grew up being spanked and punished and being given so many messages of my lack of worth at home, and that all of that carried over into my life at school. I was bullied relentlessly, and I grew up with this whole sense of essential worthlessness, and I remember when I was 3 years old, I was being spanked, and I had this thought come to me: one day I'm going to be a dad, and I'm going to do it differently. And I never forgot that, and it inspired me all throughout my life, and especially as a dad. I from the moment my kiddo was born, I was full on fanatical, trying to do things differently. And of course, in the early days, I would say my ideology is clashing with my reality because it was really hard.
Yeah.
But through that whole experience, I've learned so much, and I just feel so deep about helping parents to find their own truth, to find a beautiful, loving relationship with themselves, and for that relationship to bleed out into their relationship with their kids and in their lives. And I'm fortunate that I'm able to help a lot of people, and it's really it's the most meaningful thing to me. And I appreciate you inviting me here to talk to you and be able to share some of my ideas with folks. And I've learned a lot from you today too, David. I really appreciate it. I appreciate you sharing your wisdom with me as well.
Oh gosh, I'm just so delighted and grateful to you. And I want to ask you about the shirt, because you mentioned that at the beginning. And I just want to, I know we're wrapping up, but I just want to ask, like, what is it like? I've known you for over the years and seen you grow. What is it like to be accessing so many people? Does it feel sometimes overwhelming that so many people hang on your words? And like, I know you talked to the beauty of it, that people are like taking the acronyms and writing them on their hands, and they're steeping in the culture that you're co-creating.
Yeah.
But I'm just curious what it's like when you reach a place where you have so many people following your work and listening to your videos and audios and stuff.
Yeah, it's multi-layered. It's multi-layered for sure. It brings up all of my insecurities and puts them right square in my face, like that.
Yeah.
Like I can like this latest article I wrote was about a kid who was biting a friend of mine, And the friend was very kindly saying, "We're no biting, we don't bite, gentle." And I know that that doesn't stop kids from biting. So my whole thing was I immediately jumped out and went, "Biting is awesome!" And I grabbed a pillow and I started biting the corner of the pillow, going, "Arr!" And the kid was so excited by this because it was like there was real enthusiasm. It wasn't like it was like all enthusiasm for this very. And he came over and he grabbed the pillow and he was biting it, and then we each had a corner and we were wrestling it like dogs fighting over a piece of meat. And then it was so much fun that he went back to playing with my friend. And every time he was about to bite, this is a 2-year-old.
Yeah.
Every time he was about to bite, he would stop himself and come over to me and hand me the pillow.
Yeah.
So in one interaction, this 2-year-old learned self-regulation, which seems impossible to traditional thinking, right?
Yeah.
And and so I wrote this article. And I've gotten hundreds and hundreds of positive feedback about it. And I got one person saying, "This is ridiculous. You're training your kid to bite, and the neural pathways, blah, blah, blah."
Yeah.
And that one struck me so hard, that one negative comment, I was like, "Oh goodness, I'm a failure. Oh goodness." And I had to really talk myself through it. So, and I get criticized a lot online because stuff I share is so far from the mainstream. So there's that aspect of it. I have to really hold myself, really be tender with myself. I have to have a lot of courage. I call it posting while terrified, PWT. Because I know that when I post these things, they go against how a lot of people think. And so I have to be really courageous too, to be able to constantly putting that stuff out, and knowing that a lot of people are going to read it. I'm not hiding in a cave anymore. And so there's that. And there's also this longing for that to even grow more. I want to add more and more zeros to the end of the end of those numbers, because I have this passion to change the world and to bring more peace and harmony and love and connection to the world, And my family is totally on board with it. They support me so much in sharing this message because we've all lived it for a couple of decades. And so there's all those different aspects: the personal, the satisfaction, the fear, the longing, like you mentioned before, this deep longing, like I'm often in tears with the longing, and so it's that complex liquid system, Yeah.
Oh, it just fills my heart to hear. The beauty of what you're sharing. I'm really touched.
Yeah, thank you.
And I want to know about the shirt.
Yeah.
Do you want to share anything as a kind of
Yeah, for sure. My father, so today is the 25th of January that we're recording. My father passed away on the 29th of January 1 year ago. So we're almost at the 1 year. And I went after he passed away, I went over to my stepmom's place and helped her gather a bunch of stuff and put stuff away and going through stuff. And I took a bunch of his old shirts. My relationship with my dad was very tumultuous all throughout our lives. And I set some boundaries with him. He wasn't willingly on board with the way that I wanted to parent my kid. I was very, very protective of what we were doing because I knew it was so different from the standard in those days. And my kid was born in 1997, so there wasn't like Facebook where I could jump on with a community and talk about non-coercive parenting. I felt all alone in my family. And my mom, even though she didn't understand it, she was on board. But my dad, no. And so I had to create some distance around that as well. And people were always telling me, "Oh, you should forgive your dad. You should forgive your dad." And I don't think should forgive is even a thing, I love forgiveness. I think it's a beautiful thing, but not when it's paired with a should. I think forgiveness can be a natural result of our own process. And that is what happened to me. So at a certain point, I noticed I was just a lot less angry with my dad, This is maybe 4 years ago, something like that. 4 years before he passed away. He lost his sight as he grew older. He had a bunch of heart things, his feet, like he just became really physically a lot of challenges. And I found my heart softening towards him. I didn't make my heart soften towards him, but I found my heart softening towards him. And once I found that, I was like, okay, maybe this is the time to go towards that, because I knew he was going to go. I knew it. And I thought, I'd like him to go feeling like I love him, feeling like there's peace between us, because I knew he was going to go soon. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to do what I can. And I started calling him every couple of weeks and started trying to open my heart to him. And then when he would come back with his stuff, I would absorb it because I was, like you had your arms out, you know, I was able to do that with him, which I could not have done before. And I'm not implying that anybody should do that. No, but I got to a point where I could do that, and I wanted to do that. Yeah. Right? I chose to. I wanted to.
Yeah.
And then by the time he left, I feel like I was in the hospital with him a lot towards the end, and I feel like he really did feel like I loved him, and he did feel like we had a close relationship. And I really wanted him to go with that. I feel very emotional talking about it. I wanted him to go. I didn't want to have him feel like I didn't care for him.
Oh,
and I think that I managed to get that to happen. I don't think that I felt a lot closer to him, honestly, because I still have a lot of years of stuff to work through. But I felt a lot less angry, and I think he felt that. And so when I wear his shirts now, I look a lot like him. And so when I wear his shirts now, it's this way of me continuing that process, you know, continuing that process of reintegrating the parts of myself that were so badly wounded that I had schisms inside of myself, and little Vivek, who I love to hold and be tender with. So now I'm wearing this shirt. When I hold little Vivek, it's not just me holding that shirt. It's my dad, me holding little Vivek. It's my dad holding little Vivek in the way that I always longed for, you know, that he's part of that experience now. And so I wear this kind of in honor of that process. And yeah, I think that's that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
That's really tender and potent.
Yeah.
I think I know myself, have a relationship with my father. I know most of the men that I'm close to have mixed relationship with our fathers.
Yeah, I believe that.
And it's our job, or maybe our calling in life, to reconcile with that.
Yeah.
Who am I becoming now as a father? Yeah. What do I take from him? What do I leave behind? What do I heal? What do I carry forward?
Yeah.
Oh, what a sacred thing.
Yeah. You know, my daughter wrote this poem, and she was expressing a lot of her pain, her darkness in this poem. And she came to me and she said, "Dad, I really want to share this poem with you." And she shared such vulnerable feelings with me through this poem. And I loved the poem, and I thanked her for the poem. But inside I was thinking, you know, the safety that she feels with me to express her depth, her pain. She doesn't feel she has to hide her pain from me. The feelings that she has, that she knows her whole being is accepted. It's what I live for, you know? It's what I've lived for and what I live for. And I was so grateful for her sharing that poem with me, and the relational message that sent, you know? It's like, here's my pain, Dad. I know you can hold this with me. And so, yeah, I feel that sense of, what did you say? We're reclaiming our relationship. What did you say about working through our relationship with our dads? I liked how you worded that.
It's lost.
Yeah, it was beautiful. It was beautiful.
Reintegrate, reclaim.
Yeah.
I think we're also remembering, putting back together our parts over a lifetime. Remembering who we are, where we come from. Yeah. I believe we carry our ancestors with us.
True.
Whether we like it or not.
Yeah.
So we have to come to terms with that. I have to come to terms with that.
Yeah.
As best as I can.
Yeah. Oh. Thank you for asking about my dad. I appreciate it.
It's really touching.
Yeah.
Wow. This conversation could just keep going on and on. It's definitely so rich. I'd love to check in with you in a few months, or just I want to stay connected with you more often. It's been too long.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. We've known each other a long time. Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah, and you're going to see some parents coming to you that I think are thirsty for what you have to teach and
wonderful
model. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah, same. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for today. My heart is full.
Beautiful. Thank you, David. I appreciate you so much.
Hmm.
Yeah.